What's shaking? Hey, I'm Rick Jordan. Today, we're going all in. All right, today I have a good friend of mine on, somebody who we've been trying to do this with for a long time, and it's probably my fault why it hasn't happened yet. And we were just hanging out in Vegas a couple weeks ago in a studio in the Wynn, and we're like, we need to do this. So I have today a Wall Street Journal and USA Today best-selling author of the Reinvention Formula, a global keynote speaker, which is also a TEDx speaker, and host of the CLS Experience podcast. Craig Siegel, welcome to the show, man. What's shaking?
Oh, man, it's good to be here, brother. Every time you and I connect, it's just magic. I have so much love and respect for you. Let's have some fun today. Let's get nuts.
For sure, yeah. Man, as soon as you came on, I commented on your backdrop. And anybody who's like watching this, if you're listening right now, you have to at least look at some of the clips, right, when we post these, because that is 100% legit real, right, brother?
That's it. New York City, baby.
That's incredible. Have you been there all your life?
Pretty much. I mean, I grew up in Long Island.
Yeah.
And after college, it was Wall Street for 13 years until I reinvented myself. And so pretty much since after college, New York City is what I know. And there's just something different about the energy here for sure.
Right on, man. I always love visiting the city. You know, I've got an office in Morristown, New Jersey, but then I'll always hop over to the city anytime I possibly can.
You should have an office here.
Yeah, I should have an office downtown, right? Manhattan?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that.
That's cool. I think that's the next step. You know, we had an acquisition that was planned that way, and that one we actually said no to after a little while. But we've got some others that we're looking at, man, around that area. You said something interesting, though, dude. You said you're on Wall Street for 13 years, and then you reinvented yourself. Let's follow that trajectory here. Wall Street for 13 years. What are you talking, like broker?
Yeah. So I basically had two lives. One is prior to the pandemic and one is after. And so, you know, after college, wasn't one of those cats that knew exactly what I wanted to do, but I was ambitious and I was infatuated with the stock market. And so I went there. Yeah. And that's also when I stumbled upon personal development, which was a really pivotal moment in my life. But I spent 13 years on Wall Street, and Wall Street was a lot of fun until it wasn't.
Yeah.
And you listeners know, you know, with industries like that, it's not exactly lighting up your soul.
Yeah.
And I pivoted from the stock thing for a while, and then I had my own business, basically providing working capital to businesses all across the country. Lucrative, but not exactly soul fulfilling. And it got pretty dark for me a few years back. A couple things happened at once in the external world. I just got out of a toxic relationship, which at the time is never fun. Yeah. And my best friend, my pops, my dad, had just got diagnosed with cancer. He's still battling. And so between that and waking up every day and going to this job that I just knew wasn't in alignment with who I was becoming, it was pretty soul sucking, for lack of better words. And it got pretty dark for me. And then all of a sudden I started running. And that's pivotal because I had never run before. In fact, you couldn't pay me to run. All of a sudden, I'm running all these marathons.
I see you. Yeah, all the time posting about the marathons, dude.
Yeah. And I started running pretty fast. But for me, the reason why this was so deep, brother, is because when I would run, I would do my best connecting. Because during those runs, I didn't care about anything else. And it was then that I was really able to draw upon that divine inspiration. And then fast forward the pandemic. I mean, talk about a global awakening. Everybody kind of responded to it differently. For me, I looked at this as an historic opportunity to just reassess. If not now, then when? And I shut down my office for what I thought would be 2 weeks at the time. And I really just connected. And I started to realize I always knew I was here for something bigger and more. I believe we all are. But I was able to finally put it together after 35 years and realize that my obsession with personal development was more than just a passion. It was an assignment.
Wow.
And so from studying business for so long, I put together a strategy, kind of created like a 10-lane highway with each lane representing a different way to make an impact, but also do business, coaching, speaking, community, TED Talk, podcast, book deal, all the things. And then I reverse engineered it. And I said, okay, what's step one? Let's build our CLS brand. At the time, I had no following, no connections, nothing, but I understood the power of that. And I also considered the alternative, going back. And I actually associated death with choosing to go back and be miserable. And so I leaned in, and for the first time in my life, I was in alignment and greater like that. And over the last 3 years, I guess you could say the rest is history. Kind of a long-winded answer, but at least now your community and audience has a little bit of context.
Yeah, it's very real. You said something towards the end there that really gripped me. You said that death was very much like going back.
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you dive into that a little bit? Because did you see yourself as almost like the Walking Dead during those time periods when, at least in reflected, really?
Yeah. In fact, when I was with family during that time period, I look back now and I was a shell of myself, brother. It was like the lights were on, but nobody was home. I was always stressed out. And, you know, we're big into gratitude and personal development, and I always love personal development, but it was tough to be grateful every day waking up to go do the same thing that's depleting, right? And like at the end of a long day, I know you personally, you do so much, you're moving and shaking and all these things. At the end of a long day, you're tired, but it's a good tired of a job well done, and you can't wait to get back at it tomorrow. Same.
Yeah.
But prior to reinventing myself, at the end of a long day, I wasn't just tired, I was depleted because I was out of alignment and just forcing myself. And so nobody, and I think this is a good lesson, nobody has to settle for that. We have unique gifts that were given to us depending on what you believe in, but they're not ours. Once we're able to really connect and channel what those gifts are and help other people reveal light, in return, we reveal our own light. And that's when the magic happens, meaning higher consciousness, relationships, money, alignment, all the things. And that's what we should all strive to be at.
Yeah, that's so awesome, man. When did you actually know? You know, I know you said you took it was that 2 weeks off, right? But when did you first begin to have that awareness that you were the walking dead? Because I'm hearing you, and I've got people that talk to me all the time, and I'm sure you do, like, I'm so stressed, right? And it's like, how do you know when's the time to give up on whatever it is? How do you know when you're forcing it, as you said? How do you know when you're going the next day and it's like, maybe it's just a shift that I need to change something in me to actually make what's around me better? You know, how do you know when it's like that, where it's like, I need a complete monumental realignment of my life?
Beautiful question, brother. I like the way you articulated that too. I think there's a huge difference between pressure and stress. I actually think pressure is a great thing. If you have the right relationship with it, it's kind of a flashlight telling you that on the other side of this pressure is massive growth and expansion. And to give you a real-time example, this week we spoke at the UN. It was a really big opportunity. It was awesome. And then I was speaking to our mutual friend, Dave, and I said, I had an idea, to maybe leverage that opportunity with our first VIP dinner afterwards. I know you do those, Dave does, and I love them. And he's like, yeah, go for it. That's a great idea. But I feel a lot of pressure. I'm like, it's only 1 week to really promote it, whatever the case may be. But I leaned into it anyway, because I recognize the feeling now of pressure from my past experience. It's always a good thing on the other side. And so we did do it. It was one of the coolest nights of my life. We had 25 people at the dinner. It was sold out. It was fantastic. Stress is when either you don't do anything about the pressure or it's not in alignment and it's just turning into resentment. And so for quite a long time, brother, I felt stress because I was so lost in the wilderness with no compass. I knew that I was a gladiator in the wrong arena. I was going through the emotions, and basically I was complacent and settling. And I could say it's a comfort zone. And I do think your comfort zone is a death sentence, but it wasn't even really comforting because my soul was contracting. So I think that stress is very telling as to you're in the wrong arena, industry, relationship. If you ever feel those type of feelings, that's out of alignment. Pressure, however, is a good thing, and it creates opportunities. So for anyone listening right now, if you're feeling drained, tired, depleted, out of alignment, I think those are great indications for you to reevaluate what you're doing and maybe who you're doing it with. And to answer your question, I had felt that for a few years before the pandemic, but I felt so stuck. I wasn't stuck. I just felt stuck because I never took the time. I was just going 100 miles an hour on Wall Street that I didn't really give myself a moment to kind of get quiet and reassess. The pandemic kind of forced that.
That's awesome. You're actually speaking to me right now too. I mean, just taking the company public, it's like I'm deep in everything. So it's the other side of Wall Street, and it's, I feel it. I feel the pressure, man. At the same time, it's like what keeps me grounded every day as I come back to it. Like in the morning, I'm like, I'm the one that gets to do this.
Right.
It's not like my team. Yeah. They feel the pressure, they feel the stress, but it's more of like, every single day I'm getting up and it's like, some of the stuff really does suck. It's hard ass work. It's stuff I'm never going to have to do again, but it's like I'm a bricklayer laying a foundation. It's like, I get to do this. There's not a lot of people that get to do this.
That's right.
I saw a little bit of a funny story. I saw your post about speaking at the UN, right? And by the way, where can everyone find you? Because I saw it on Instagram. We'll hit it at the end too, but
Me on social media,
Yeah.
Siegel _CLS. Anywhere you buy books, Reinvention Formula, and the CLS Experience.
Dude, that's well practiced. Well done. Fantastic. You're like, blah, blah, blah. That's awesome. That was great. So I saw you speaking with, I want to know how you ended up getting that book. That was phenomenal. You speaking to the UN, and it was Sri Lanka, right? Was the country, if I remember right?
Yep.
What's funny, dude, is because, I have a cyber company. And anytime I talk on stage about cyber, because I talk about, what the real hacker looks like, and I'm like, it's not some guy in like the back room with a hood over his head, and talking about, I'm going to hack the World Health Organization or something. I'm like, I put up a photo, no kidding, of a family from Sri Lanka, like as a slide, as an illustration, and I do it in a humorous way, but at the same time, it's like, that's who's hacking you. Like if you think of like Pablo Escobar, but I saw your photo, I'm like, man, my brother is talking to Sri Lanka. I'm going to have to find a different country to pick on and use as my example for the hacker.
That's so funny, brother. Yeah, my experience there was awesome. There were good people there, but that's so funny. I love the alignment.
Yeah, it was hilarious to me anyways. You had no idea, of course, but I saw them like, I got to find a different country now, man. It's going to have to be like South Africa or something benign. But yeah,
it was cool because it was a different type of audience than guys like you and I are used to.
Yeah.
So I'm hopeful that move can maybe pave the way and open the door for people like you and me to speak at other audiences or be able to transfer energy and delay a really cool message to other types of people, so to speak, aside from just like entrepreneurial.
That's awesome, man. I just found out yesterday, because the show, it's like shout out to everybody in India, because it's around 40% of my audience is actually from India. We did some demographics.
Right?
Yeah, it was interesting. It's like 52% US, of course, but then a great portion is India. And I maybe did a little bit of an accent the other day. So maybe I apologize. Like on the show I did. No joke. It was funny. Yeah. But that was around like the Instagram algorithm. I'll tell you about that some other time. But dude, how in the world did you get that gig? Did they reach out to you? Because that's pretty awesome. I saw the photos. Yeah. It just looked badass. Like you were able to really do a lot of good for them there. Yeah.
So it's a great question. And when you're in alignment and you're really connected and you're doing the right thing, that's when good things happen. So you've heard, I know you're a pretty spiritual cat.
Yeah.
I imagine the audiences too. You've heard before, like when you're so locked in, you don't have to worry about the how. I used to be so skeptical of that, brother, because I was such a mindset guy, masculine energy, grind, tell me what to do, hardest worker in the room, till I really went down this kind of spiritual path that I realized that everything that's happening here, even right now, is really just 1% of what's really happening.
Yeah.
So when someone says, like, what does it mean to be spiritual? My perspective, at least, is that means that you believe that there's a lot more going on here beyond our logic.
Yeah.
And once I really started connecting to that, I just found myself at the right place at the right time, good people coming into my life, the wrong people exiting my movie, so to speak. And so my building in New York City did a little event. They're like, we'll call all authors and artists, and we'd love for you to participate. And I said, I'd love to. And so I went there on a Sunday, and I met this gentleman who's now my good friend, and he works there at the Permanent Mission of Sri Lanka. He loved what I was doing, and he asked if I'd come speak to him. And so I said, absolutely, I will. So like Steve Jobs said, you can never connect the dots looking forward, only backwards. So when you're really connected and you're in the right arena at the right time, good things begin to happen that you didn't necessarily have on your whiteboard.
Yeah, it's crazy because the definition of luck I've heard too is like preparation meets opportunity.
That's right.
And I believe a lot of the preparation is exactly what you're saying. You mentioned Steve Jobs too. But man, I've seen it almost as like, it's like blinders that end up getting lifted off because it's almost like all of that already existed. You're talking like the other 99%, right? The other 99% already existed, but you were completely blind to it because you did not know how to see. It's just intriguing, man. I love that.
Yeah, I think, and also like, religions, philosophies, but you never want to put that on someone, let them do their own thing. But I can just encourage everybody, whatever your thing is, take the fruit, leave the peel, but connect in something. And when you're really invested in that, great things will begin to happen. Even like just having conversations like this, like a lot of my one-on-one clients say, it's like kind of intoxicating because you're tapping into something a bit bigger and so forth. So I would encourage everybody to explore.
That's cool. Do you ever get up on stage? And I'm going to ask for a relative moment here. Do you ever get up on stage because you're a big speaker and get off and be like, I have no idea about half of what I just said, but everybody says it was the best thing in the world?
Yeah, I do. And I'll tell you why. Because whereas I used to maybe over prepare, now I'm a big believer in preparation breeds confidence. But also, I believe this might sound a little too spiritual, but like when you're really connected, you're a channel. And sometimes the right stuff to the right audience will literally come through you, maybe as 2 seconds before you need to say it. So I felt like that a lot, if I'm being honest.
It's pretty powerful, isn't it? And it's, dude, and it's okay to get spiritual. Exactly. It really is. And I've, all of our listeners, I mean, they understand me. They've been listening for years. They know how I believe, what I believe. And those connected moments you're talking about, it's crazy because I think when I'm on stage and there's times when I think that I crush it, that it doesn't land well. And those times are times that I can remember almost everything that I said. So it's almost like you're talking about the over preparation, but then the inverse is I remember more than half of what I said I don't remember. And it's like, man, what did I say? Because everybody's saying like, can you show me the recording of this? So maybe I can use it again at some point, but it's so cool because it was meant for certain individuals in that audience at that specific time period. And
That's really cool data right there, because you basically just nailed it, right? When you don't necessarily remember, it's because you were really channeling.
Yeah.
And when you do remember the whole thing and maybe you didn't get the desired objective that you anticipated, probably because maybe you overcompensated or overprepared.
Yeah, right on. Even for these shows too. I mean, your show, do you have questions that are prepared for you ahead of time, or you prepare ahead of time?
Yeah. So I love to prepare because, we have really, really big people on the show, a lot of people that don't technically, do a lot of interviews. And I always take pride in being able to disarm them. I think that's when you could really create the most magic, by building the deepest rapport. And so I definitely like to know stuff about them. They don't typically get asked, but then and to be clear, I have a guideline, of course, but I like to allow the conversation to flow. I think that when it's more like that, that's when you really create that unbelievable mystical like connection that's most beneficial for the listeners.
That's awesome. When did you start all this? I mean, the personal brand, was that when the pandemic hit after that 2 weeks? Was that shift in alignment?
It's been a little over 3 years.
Yeah.
It's been a crazy run, brother, a crazy ride. And in many aspects, we're just getting warmed up. And I'll be doing something in this capacity, for the rest of this human experience, for sure.
Well, that's how it is. You found your purpose, dude, for real. It's like you can see it. I'm curious, I would love to see photos of you sometime, from prior to that. And because when you look in your eyes, if anybody's listening, you can check on a video. When you look in Craig's eyes, you can see light. You can see just wholeness. You can see fulfillment. It's like, I'm sure you know what I'm talking about. Like the times when you looked in the mirror prior to this, did you see emptiness? Did you see just glassy?
First of all, thank you, brother. I received that and I really appreciate that.
Yeah.
Yes, you nailed it. And, I can't tell you how many people would sign up for something that I'm offering these days, and they'll be like, okay, great. What did I sign up for? I'm like, what do you mean? They're like, oh, I just wanted to be around your energy. It's very contagious. But before I reinvented myself, and to be clear, it wasn't just a career. I want everybody to know it was an identity. I'm engaged. We're planning our wedding to my soulmate in September. We get a brand new puppy.
Awesome.
Reinvented. Thank you, brother. But before that, brother, I wasn't even me. I was inauthentic. I created this persona that I thought I was supposed to show up to the world as. And I don't even know who the persona was based on. I kind of made it up. And so one of the things I did when I reinvented myself is I gave myself permission to be less than perfect. And for the first time ever, kind of come back to actually me, that journey back to myself. And even though there was no guarantee that it would work, I guaranteed to myself that I would be the real, raw, strange cat that I am. And people would gravitate or they wouldn't, but I could live with that. Up until that point, I wasn't myself.
Yeah.
Again, I was empty, for lack of better words. And like I was telling you earlier, I remember some specific times with my family, and I wouldn't go back and change it. It was all part of the past, but the lights were on, but nobody was home.
Yeah, I hear you. What did you think? Did you ever notice that ahead of that 2 weeks at all? Did you ever look at yourself and be like, dude, you got to do something about this, but didn't?
100%, because there's no excuses.
Yeah.
But, Wall Street is very fast paced. And I never took the time to get quiet and give myself an opportunity to reassess. I always felt a tug at my soul. And there's two voices, right? One is the ego, or I like to call him the opponent. That one's very loud. Most people aren't able to identify that, and so they just succumb to the ego all the time.
Yeah.
But there's another voice, which is kind of like a whisper. That's the tug at your soul. And I felt that for a few years. I just wasn't able to put it all together until the lockdown provided me that opportunity to get quiet and reassess. But before that, when I started running these marathons, I started to get on the path because I would do some great connecting then. I just wasn't able to put it all together until the lockdown.
That's interesting. I'm going to dive a little deep on this one. So after your shift, did you ever feel the tug to go back? And what did that feel like? You didn't.
No, I'll tell you this. I'll be real vulnerable for a second. When I shut down my office and I started to put this together, I went back to work maybe a few months later, like when they started letting people come in for a couple of days a week.
Yeah.
In COVID.
Yep. And then back out again. Yep.
Yeah. So I went one day, brother, and I'll never forget. I came home and like, I'm never going back ever again. And it was that consciousness that said, okay, I'm burning the ships. I'm all in with CLS, and I'm going to die trying and figure it out. And so once I went back and had that contrast again, that's when I realized I'm making this work one way or the other.
That's cool. I've heard that a lot with individuals that make big decisions in their lives. You know, and I could probably pick those moments out in mine too, to where it's almost like you have to view in some form or fashion what you were doing prior, almost to like solidify it, you know, because it brings it up, and we get the reminders all the time, right? Because there's always pulse. I mean, you look right outside your window, dude, and you've got the city of money right behind you.
Yeah.
You know, it's I'm sure, but I love that it's also outside there, right outside your window, because it's like, it's beautiful and everything, but that building over there, wherever it is, it's like, that's the place I'm never going back to.
Yeah. And also, just to be clear, because often I get asked, like, people are so inspired with what I did, but I also have to, you know, make money and make a living. And I want to be clear to people. I'm making more money now than I ever made on Wall Street. The difference is it's a byproduct and an energetic exchange. Yeah. You can absolutely create that hybrid of having purpose, loving what you're doing, and also unapologetically doing business too.
That's amazing. Our friend Dave, right? He always says that people get so busy with things that they forget to make money at what they're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah. Spinning your wheels, man. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. That's amazing, brother. I love how you were so convicted to where it's interesting though, that you still went back for one day. You know, what was that even after you made the decision, but what was your thought process that morning, getting up, getting dressed?
You know what, I think that if you're taking me back right now, don't take me back, right?
I'm like diving into your bathroom right now for real. Like you get out of the shower, what are you thinking, man?
The good stuff. This is the deep stuff that I think will really resonate.
Yeah.
I think at that moment, I probably just got CLS up and running. It was probably the first 3 months. I had a ton of momentum, but I probably was still figuring out how to monetize and stuff like that. And I think my thought process was probably like, maybe I can still do that and, you know, build a cushion for myself to get this up and running. Because I was used to a certain lifestyle, you know, straight up. And there was no money coming in for a little bit. And then I went back and I said, oh, no. I'm totally out of alignment being here. That identity of me that used to be here is dead. Let's have a funeral for it. Now, what is the new identity that matches my new desires? And so I literally went home and I'm like, I'll figure this out. We'll start to do business. We'll continue the brand. We'll get a lot of momentum. We'll add a ton of value. We'll just get this thing going. And once I made that deal with myself and I just surrendered from the expectation of having to make my money that month, that's ironically when, you know, the opportunity started to come to monetize and so forth.
That's so awesome, man. And it really is that all in. And that's why you're on the show, right? That's why you're on the show all in. Because it's burn the boats. You know, I've heard that so much recently, and even through the pandemic, it was intriguing because everyone said, "Oh, you don't want to trash a relationship. You don't want to burn the bridges. You don't want to burn the boats in case you ever need to go back." Is there really ever a point to going back?
If you make this decision with yourself and you know that your soul is totally out of alignment, then there's no need. That's really the best feedback that you need, is when you have this feeling of like, you're high on life, like me and you in this conversation right now. This is what we should be doing right now on Friday afternoon.
I was pumped, dude. I saw you on the schedule today. Yeah.
Yeah. But when you have that other feeling, I'm sure you can relate at some point. And the feeling that I had on Wall Street, that's an exact indicator as you're a glider in the wrong arena and it's time to reassess. So no, I don't think there's time to go back. I think that most people, this is what I see with a lot of people that like come into my community and coaching. They're successful in the 1% world, meaning money, things, stuff like that. And they have this limiting belief, this little gremlin that needs to be cleaned up. that they don't think that they could replicate that success in a different arena that they actually feel aligned to. They make this mistake of thinking that what made them successful was the arena and not actually them. And the reality is it's you that makes all the things that you do successful. And the majority of those characteristics and traits are transferable.
Yeah, for sure, dude. That's intriguing too, because it's like the circle. I used to think that way, I'm talking like 7-8 years ago. It's like, if I can just get into that circle, that circle is what's going to make me successful. Like if I can just be in that room is what's going to make me successful. And then I started to realize once I got into those rooms, it was like, I don't really like a lot of these people. I'm looking around. I'm like,
I understand.
Yeah, it's like, these are not the conversations that I want to have, because the conversations are all about, quite literally, money, like almost a worship of it, and quite literally about elevating themselves. I get it. There's a point to where it's like, I really feel, you talked about celebrating too. I really feel like Jesus is probably like the best self-marketer in the world, because we're recording this on a Good Friday here. He's like, I am the Son of God, the one and only, and he would talk about himself all the time that way. But it was from such a position of humility too. And I know we're not typically going spiritual on the show, but I love this. When you look at it, whether you believe it or not, it's like you look at the history, it's like, that's from a different position. Because I hear you talking and you're like, I love doing this. I love when people get around me because I love to impart things into them. I love to hear their story and their journey after they come into contact with me, when they say, I just want to be around you. They have no idea what they just bought, but I just want to be around you because I know there's something that I can model off of you and tap into myself and lift myself up too. And then money is the byproduct. But those rooms, dude, those circles, some of those circles are just stupid.
I understand. And it's funny because those people look like they're successful depending upon what the definition of success is, right? And it's like, I'm not, I don't want to put shade on anybody, but nowadays it's like, if I find someone that's crushing it in the 1% world, like they're making money, but they hate what they're doing or they're miserable, to me, that person they're not successful. Like they're missing the whole point. Yep.
I feel you. That's awesome, brother. Dude, the reinvention formula, that was just released just a short time ago, right? Like within the last year?
Yeah, in August last summer.
That's awesome, man. I mean, you've got Wall Street Journal and USA Today best-selling author already on that. That's phenomenal, dude. I'm so excited for you with this. Can you give us step one on the reinvention formula? And then it's a little teaser, then everybody else can go buy the book.
Yeah, the book is a really interesting vessel because it's the 15 years of personal development, and I tried it all. I mean, from NLP to Kabbalah, law of attraction. I studied so much, and I put it all in there. And then also what I actually did to go from rock bottom to reinvent myself and build a brand, and go from 0 to 7 figures in 3 years with no PR marketing. So there's something in there for everybody, no matter where you're at in your journey, even if you just like personal development or inspiration, so forth. I think the first step is getting clarity and realizing that you're not in alignment and you're not happy. And just understanding that you have a choice. For everyone listening, this is your movie and you are the main character. And essentially, everyone else in your movie is just extras. And if you don't like the plot, even the geographical location, the pen is in your hands to rewrite the next scene. And for so long, I was so invested in this narrative that this was it for me. I'm a Wall Street guy. I'll make a certain amount of money. I'll always be strung out. I'll have toxic relationships. When I considered the fact that I could choose a different story, I stopped double downing on what can go wrong, and I started triple downing on what can go right.
Yeah.
Let's start giving energy to that narrative. And that clarity helps shift my perspective. And then all of a sudden you have a ton of momentum, which obviously is the hardest thing to get and the easiest thing to lose.
Yeah, that first step is that's a lot of the work too. Yeah, I've noticed that, because even when I needed to make a huge shift in my life, dude, I commend you, because that's incredible.
It took me 35 years, depending upon who you ask. A lot of our mutual friends and so forth, some that are a bit older than us, they'll say, wow, you figured it out early. Sometimes I feel like I figured it out late.
Yeah,
but
I feel you.
We have the rest of our lives and so forth, but it is tough. It's probably the hardest thing you'll ever do.
Yeah.
And it also requires the most amount of courage.
Yeah, right on. Fear is something I always believe that you should lean into. It's meant to be there to shake you up, to do something different, to take some kind of action, not to keep you stuck.
You nailed it. And I think when I think of fear, not the same, but cousins maybe, pressure and fear. Because they both feel a little like, but on the other side of that is massive expansion.
Dude, I love it. That's a good bookend, brother. I appreciate you being on, man. For real. I mean, you just like closed it out right there, because we just went right back to where we started, talking about pressure. Man, I appreciate you. I love you. I'm excited to continue to know you and get to know you even better. And I'm excited to even stand on stage with you at some point, which I know we're going to be doing. So, brother, thank you for coming on. Craig Siegel _CLS, that's on Instagram, and cultivatelastingsymphony.com. Dude, I love that. You know, I actually did not know what CLS meant until I looked at your sheet before the show today. That's beautiful, brother.
Thank you, but it's also a play on my initials, Craig Landon Siegel.
I didn't know the L. That's awesome. Look at you. That's awesome, man.
Thank you for having me. Genuinely, I have so much love and respect for you. And every time we get together, it's just magic. And I can't wait to do more with you.
Same, brother. Thanks for being on.
Thank you, brother.